Welcome back to the Badass Literature Society, where badasses come together to rate and review novels recommended by you. Hi, I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
And I'm Lauren.
This month we read Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. Christopher Buehlman was born in Florida in 1969 and grew up in the suburbs of the Tampa Bay area. A poor fit for these surroundings, he anesthetized himself with horror and fantasy fiction, arcades, role playing games, and the temptations of late night cable TV until he could effect an escape onto a university campus as a French language major, and then onto Renaissance festival circuits as Christophe the Insulter, verbal mercenary. He spent his 20s writing poetry and insults, his 30s writing plays, and now seems to be a novelist. Pastimes include Mai Tai, weight training, primitive archery, foreign travel, romance languages, horror movies, cooking, and chess. He lives with a very understanding and talented wife and a ragtag assortment of wee rescue beasties. He neither sides with aggressors nor complies with oppressors. I like his bio. That was interesting. Kind of funny. Barbara, would you like to tell us a little bit about this book?
Sure, this was originally published on October 2nd of 2012. I didn't realize it was an older book. Has it had like a resurgence? Is that?
It's had a resurgence. It was republished recently by Tor.
Okay. Genre is considered horror, fantasy, and historical fiction. It is 432 pages. Currently has a 4.19 on Goodreads, 4.5 on Amazon, and a 4 on Fable. It has not been nominated for any awards as of the recording of this podcast. We think it's important for readers to know what, if any, representation is in the books we read. So for this book, there are no BIPOC characters, main and supporting LGBTQ plus characters, and main characters with disabilities.
Thank you. And Lauren, would you like to give us a brief synopsis of the book before we jump into our discussion?
The year is 1348. Thomas, which is weird. It's in the audiobook they say Tomas. I don't know why.
Yeah,
So,
because he's French, so it should be
Yeah,
Thomas,
it should be
isn't it?
so I
Tomas.
guess I'll say Tomas, but it's spelled the same as Thomas, and I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting that. Okay. The year is 1348. Tomas, a disgraced knight, has found a young girl alone in a dead Norman village. An orphan of the Black Death in an almost unnerving picture of innocence, she tells Tomas that plague is only part of a larger cataclysm, that the fallen angels under Lucifer are rising in the second war on heaven, and that the world of men has fallen behind the lines of conflict. Is it delirium or is it faith? She believes she has seen the angels of God. She believes the righteous dead speak to her in dreams. And now she has convinced the faithless Tomas to shepherd her across a depraved landscape to Avignon. There, she tells Tomas she will fulfill her mission to confront the evil that has devastated the earth and to restore to this betrayed, murderous knight the nobility and hope of salvation he long abandoned. As hell unleashes its wrath, and as the true nature of the girl is revealed, Tomas will find himself on a macabre battleground of angels and demons, saints and the risen dead, and them in the midst of a desperate struggle for nothing less than the soul of man.
Dun, dun, dun. So, what did you think about Between Two Fires? Remember, no spoilers.
I struggled with this one. I was expecting one thing, and I feel like it was a very different book than what I was expecting. It, it took me, I want to say, upwards of maybe like 50 to 60% into the book to actually enjoy reading it. And I think that's a little too far into a book for me to be satisfied with that. I feel like I'm willing to give a book quite a bit to like catch my interest, because I understand that it's not going to be like chat like page one that I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, yes. Like, so certain books, take a little bit longer, but this was rough for me. I'm not going to lie. I definitely struggled to get through this book at the very beginning. I Yeah. I had a hard time with the characters. I had a hard time with the overall plot. It just, yeah, I struggle bust with this one. And it's been a while since I feel like I have struggle bust through a book, and this one was kind of there for me. It did pick up at the end, towards the end, and then I was really like, oh, okay, cool. I don't I guess I would say I was enjoying it. There are certain things I still was like, okay, not for me, but overall towards the end, but this was rough. It's just rough.
So I really expected to like this book a lot more than I did. I still enjoyed it. I still liked it. I do agree with some of what Barbara was saying, though. Like I really liked it at the beginning, and then it kind of just got real slow and dragged on for a little bit. And I feel like didn't really pick back up until around like the 60% ish mark, which is a long way into the book for you to wait for it to pick up and be able to keep going. I think Barbara and I were talking about it, and I think she said that she definitely would have probably DNF'd this had it not been a book that we were reading for the podcast. I don't know if I would have DNF'd it, but it probably would be one that just like sits there. Maybe I would have moved on and read something else and then like come back and finished it later when I remembered it. Like it was the fact that it takes to 60% to get to where it really picked up and you wanted to just keep going is kind of a hard sell for a lot of people. I did really like the book. I thought it was an interesting story, and interesting told in this time period with the plague as the backdrop. Um, the description that Lauren just read talks a lot about hell and angels and demons fighting, and there's not as much of that in the book as the back that synopsis would lead you to believe. There's a lot more demonic stuff than there is angelic stuff, but I don't know. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and that not isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it was different. I'll get into more details later. I apologize that for being kind of vague in this part.
I agree. It was interesting. I feel like I definitely wouldn't have picked this one up on my own. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. I also am with Barbara. I think there were a couple scenes early on that I probably would have DNF'd it. I'd be like, no, that's a no for me. Like I would have just
Yeah.
put it back down. But alas, it was a podcast book, so I had to persevere. Yeah, without spoilers, I don't know what else I can say, but
Right.
they're just like overarching like themes that I didn't love, and just the way that the author writes. There were aspects of that I didn't love, that I felt like were not ideal. So anyway, but I didn't hate it. Like I thought that I did think that the setting and the backdrop were interesting. I thought that the concept was interesting. So like it wasn't like the worst book I've ever read, but would I read it again? No. Would I recommend it? Probably not.
Hey, that's the next question, Lauren. Wait.
And the wise
So sorry.
words. Was it? Well, it's not bad, but not great either. Like,
There you go.
Yes.
So we're not going to go into our individual ratings on this one for now. Got to wait till the end for that. But our group score for this one was a 7 out of 10. Quickly, before we talk about whether we would recommend this book, because I know some listeners only listen to the first part. If then if they choose to read it, they go and read the book. And I would like to give you a few trigger warnings that the book does not provide before, and also some trigger warnings before we get into the latter half of the podcast. So the book and this discussion may pertain to sexual violence, extreme gore and body horror, religious trauma and blasphemy, as well as some historical bigotry. So take that as you will, and just know that that
Yes,
it's in the
and
book.
if you haven't listened or if you haven't read the book yet and you're getting an older copy, they have since omitted chapter 15, so just skip that one.
If
is
it's
it
still in your
chapter
copy.
15?
It is, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is. So anyway, with that being said, would you recommend this book? This is usually an easy question for me. I feel like it, with the exception of a handful where I just, and I say it's an easy question because it's usually a very black and white yes or no. And this one's harder because it's not a definite yes, but it's also not a definite no. It's a really interesting story. It's also a really dark story. So I think there's some people based on that alone. Like, for example, I was talking to my mom the other day on the phone and she asked what I was reading. And I told her, but I was like, you definitely, she's like, oh, that's, I was like, no, you shouldn't read this. Like, I
Don't read it,
don't
Pam.
read, you would not like this book. But there are probably other people. I mean, not probably, there are other people that I think I would recommend that enjoy this kind of darker fantasy. But I think, so I think the answer is, would I recommend it? Yes, but with some caveats of not to everyone. And if I did recommend it, I would provide the same trigger warnings that I just provided to our listeners.
Yeah, I already said it on accident, but I don't think I would recommend this. I don't know that it's one. I mean, I can think of maybe like two people I know that would be into this maybe, but even they like, I don't know. I think most of my friends, if I recommended it, would probably DNF it for various reasons. For that reason, I probably I'm not gonna like tell people not to read it. Be like if they're like, oh, what did you read for the podcast? I would tell them, and then I'd be like, it's interesting. You can you can try it, but it's not like one that I'm gonna go to everybody and be like, you've got to read this book so I can talk to you about it, kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's definitely how I was going to answer. If someone's like, "Oh, hey, is there a book that you think I should read?" I would never in a million dreams pick this one or recommend this one. Now, if someone were to come up to me and be like, "Hey, I've been thinking about reading this book. It sounds interesting. I want to read it." I would never be like, "No, don't," because honestly, I'm a firm believer of everyone has like books, it's just a difference of opinion. Like I might not enjoy something but you might, so why would I ever like discourage someone from reading? I'm excited that people want to read. So if someone comes up to me and goes, hey, I want to read this book, what do you think? I would just preface and say, not for me, but if you were interested in reading it, like please read it, and then I would love to have a discussion about it, because I would love to see like if you really enjoyed it, why you enjoyed it, or maybe you were like me and we're excited to read it and then it turns out like maybe not so much, and then we can discuss what about it that we didn't like or something like that, or things that we did like. So I personally would, it's not even in my top like 500 recommendations of a book that I would recommend to someone, to be honest with you. I would even say, people are like, oh, top 100, nah, it's top not even 5. Like I've read quite a few books, these are going to be in the bottom to recommend. But if someone would be like, hey, yeah, I was thinking about reading it, go for it. You should read it. You should check it out. I don't want the dim of what I'm saying to dim what, if you were excited to read this book, just go ahead and read it. Go ahead and read it and check it out for yourself and see if you like it.
Yeah, then come back and we can discuss.
I think that's fair. All right, for those of you leaving us at this point, don't forget to give us a rating if you like us. Make sure you're following on Facebook and Instagram. Our handle is at @BadassLitPod. We would love to hear from you. If you have a book you want us to read, let us know. Now, for a short preview of our next episode, next month we are reading The Divorce by Frida McFadden.
What is a happily ever after really worth? Naomi was living the quintessential love story. Boy meets girl, they fall in love, get married, buy a dream house, and start a family. Then he kicks her out, hires the city's best divorce lawyers, drains their accounts, and takes up with a 20-something. It's a brutal end to the story. Naomi should accept defeat, move into a dingy apartment, get back into the workforce, and piece together the shattered remains of her life. Except, why should she? Instead, Naomi fixates on her husband's new girlfriend. What begins as a cynical curiosity soon twists into obsession, and then into something far darker. As Naomi uncovers secrets she never imagined, she realizes her own life may be in danger. But if it keeps her perfect family intact, isn't it worth it?
Interesting.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Remember, the second part of this episode is an in-depth look at Between Two Fires, so if you do want to read it, stop listening now and come back when you're done.
Nom Nom is fresh dog food made by real people who really care. They're purposeful and enthusiastic about giving your dog the best food for them and their health, so they can thrive and be their best. Nom Nom delivers fresh food made with whole ingredients backed by veterinary science. And science tells us that dog health starts in the bowl, so improving their diet is one of the best ways to help them live a long, happy life. All you have to do is order, pour, and serve. Barbara and I have 2 dogs, Luna, a husky, and Quinny, a Shih Tzu mix. Our 2 dogs love the beef mash recipe, but to be honest, I'd say Quinny's favorite is the turkey fare. She drools when that comes out of the fridge. Yes, I know, Luna. I'm going to tell them about that right now. Luna is an extremely picky eater and always has been. She usually takes forever to warm up to new food, but not with Nom Nom. She dove in immediately. Both dogs seemed to have more energy, and Luna's stools were no longer soft. Your dog's health starts in the gut. A better diet means softer coats, more energy, better breath, and smaller, more consistent stools. Your dog can't tell you if they're healthy, but you can tell when their health improves. It's the easiest way to take the guesswork out of feeding your dog the best. Nom Nom meals are pre-portioned for your dog's exact caloric needs. Board-certified vet nutritionists are kind of a big deal, and Nom Nom has 2 on staff that work extensively to ensure everything gets sent out is the very best for your dog's livelihood. So how does Nom Nom work? You tell them about your pup, age, breed, weight, allergies, and protein preferences. Then they tailor a specific amount of individually packaged Nom Nom meals and send them straight to you. Store the meals in the freezer or fridge until it's mealtime. They'll give you specific instructions on how to transition your dog from foods like kibble to always fresh Nom Nom for best results. Watch your dog clean their dishes, dance for dinner, and overall thrive. Ready to make the switch to fresh? Order Nom Nom today. Go to a link in the description of this episode and then use our referral code BADASSLIT. That's BADASSLIT and get 50% off your first order plus free shipping. Plus, Nom Nom comes with a money-back guarantee. If your dog's tail isn't wagging within 30 days, Nom Nom will refund your first order. No fillers, no nonsense, just Nom Nom.
Now, for those of you sticking around for the spoilers, here we go. We'll start off this part of the podcast like we always do. Who is your nomination for the Badass Character Award, Barbara?
Delphine. We only have 3 main characters, technically 2 really, and I feel like if you pick anyone else, I don't know what to tell you.
So, I mean, Delphine is, I think, an obvious choice. I think she definitely is a badass character. I think you could do like a second option as Father Matthew Hannicott. I think that the drunk priest was also a badass character in his own right. Not in the same way you traditionally would think of it. I think that a lot of people would traditionally think that the badass character should be Tomas because he's the big like 6'5" knight that
No.
all that blah blah blah. But I think that the priest had a lot going for him as far as badass, maybe not in the traditional sense of the word, but in his own way. Like the way that he cared for and protected Delphine, the way that he kind of softened the main character. I think I would say Tomas is the main character. He softened Tomas a little bit. You could tell that he helped him care about people again in a world where I think a lot of people have closed themselves off from that because so much death is surrounding them. And so for that, I think that's why he gets an honorable mention for me.
I picked Delphine.
Which is the correct answer. So.
That's why I did the honorable mention for Pere Matthew. But yeah, so Delphine, congratulations. You are our badass character for this month.
Woo-woo.
Now let's talk about the characters a little bit more. Barbara, would you like to talk about your favorite character, Tomas?
No, I don't. Why don't you talk to him since you're...
I'll talk about Tomas.
Okay, go
All right,
for it.
go for it, Lauren.
He's kind of an asshole, honestly.
Kind
can
of?
we say that? Can we say that on here? Do we have to bleep it? Okay.
No, we can say that.
Okay. His whole, like, I don't know. I did not care for him on the front end. There's like a scene where they're like talking about essaying Delphine. She's just like this little child. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to read this book. Like, this is stupid. And then I had to keep reading. Ultimately, though, Tomas is like, convinces them that they shouldn't, or she maybe convinces. I can't remember. It was a while ago.
He kills
Somehow
them,
he essentially like says
he kills the ringleader of the group that is trying to make it happen.
Yeah. So then he and Delphine have this like weird bond that's written really weirdly. That's almost creepy, but then like you're not supposed to feel creepy about it. So I don't really know how you guys felt about that. I feel like it's supposed to be portrayed as like a father or like a brother kind of vibe. Yeah. But then like there are moments where it's like doesn't feel like that. I don't know.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed. Just me. He's a knight, I think, isn't that his like title?
He was a knight.
He was a knight. He's been excommunicated.
And now he's like devil, so to speak, right? Like, or he ends up going to hell. I don't know. Maybe Michael would.
This went from the very beginning to the character development that happened to the middle to the end.
Michael.
So in the middle of what Lauren was talking about there, so I think that the relationship between Tomas and Delphine was confusing, and I think that was intentional by the author because I think she saw him as like a paternal or like familial figure, and because of how he feels at the beginning of the book, and he's very harsh to her, and not necessarily like mean, like intentionally, but just like he's trying not to care about anybody
because he doesn't even want to know her name. Like,
he doesn't want to know her name because he has experienced at this point in his life so much death and so much loss that he just doesn't want connection with anybody. He's written all of that off. And so I think the confusing part of the relationship is intentional because you're kind of seeing both sides of it. And it's him saying, I want nothing to do with you. I guess I'll keep you safe. And her being like, I care for you. You're, please, like seeing him as like this, like father or big brother figure.
And she has so much like more faith in his character than he does. Not his character. Like, sorry, not
yes.
his like the book character.
His
but
character
like
as a person.
Correct. Like she gives him more credit for like oh no, like you're not a bad guy or you wouldn't do that, and like and then we hear like the internal thoughts, so it's like, oh yeah, he probably would. Like
right.
Tomas in this story is a disgraced knight that has been excommunicated from knightdom and the church and his village, and took up as a brigand or a bandit, and then for the bulk of the story is effectively acting as Delphine's protector as she is making her journey where God and the angels are telling her to go to Avignon.
No, God wasn't. Remember?
Sorry, God wasn't around. The angels were telling her that she needed to go to Avignon. And so for the bulk of the story, he is acting as her protector and eventually the priest protector as well. But I think that's he does eventually go to hell. We'll talk about that at the end of the podcast, but that's not something I probably would have concluded in
We're
the
in the spoiler
discussion.
section.
No, I understand. You just jumped a lot. Like he does
Lord
technically
described
get
the
character
first scene,
development.
like the opening scene with Tomas, and it was like, and then he ends up in hell, which is like one of the last chapters of
And then
the
he
book.
goes to hell.
He definitely has character development. It definitely does happen.
He does have character
whether certain things were appropriate or not, up to the reader. But yeah, there was definitely a huge jump from Lauren's description of him.
Yeah, he definitely does have
shouldn't let
character
me describe
development.
characters.
I really enjoyed his character development. It was very. I enjoyed seeing him go from like this hardened, cold man to kind of becoming. She kind of helps him be more human again, like to let love in and care for people, and you see both like the warmth side of that, but then also the heartbreaking side of that, because it's still a cruel world and the plague is still happening. And so then you see that sadness too. So I really enjoyed Tomas's character development. He is absolutely not a good guy, and he is not a likable character for a lot of reasons. But I thought he was a very well written character as far as his development throughout this story. Barbara, would you like to talk about Delphine, or should we let Lauren just say Delphine was a little girl and then she's the Messiah?
And then she goes to hell.
And then she goes to hell.
I mean, that's up to Lauren.
Go
No,
ahead.
So do we actually know her actual age? Roughly what, 13, something like that?
I think she
13,
is like around 12 at the beginning of the
the
story.
omitted chapter, we kind of have an idea.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
I
So
would
that's
say
why I'm like
12 to
13,
14
14,
range,
12
yeah.
to 14 range is maybe around what she's supposed to. I think maybe actually in the first chapter she says how old she is, but or roughly. But yeah, so she's this little girl that Tomas and his brigand team like kind of brigands stumble upon by eating her donkey, R.I.P. And both her
R.I.P. the
parents,
donkey. That was so abrupt.
I know, right? Her parents both have died from the plague, and she asked them to help her bury her dad. And come to find out that she talks to angels, and asked Tomas to bring her to her little pilgrimage, essentially to save, I would say, the world, but this is kind of like a European problem. So to save the Europeans, like, this is on you guys, leave us out of this type thing. But anyways, to save the Europeans in this whole plague infested demon thing that's going on in the European countries, mostly France and England.
She's 14 years old.
14. Okay.
Just look it up. Yeah.
There we go. 14 years old. And she essentially throughout the novel is Tomas and Hannicott's kind of like, what would you say, they're conscious? Like, she tells them, like, stop cussing, don't murder people, do the right thing. Like, and her dad was a lawyer, so you get these really interesting conversations where, like, they're talking about stuff and she, like, throws in her 2 cents, and it's very smart. And, like, they even mention, like, well, her dad was a lawyer, that's why she's really good at arguments. So, like, arguing her point. And she is. Come to find out that she actually is, like, kind of like the second coming type thing, and, like, she's
the Messiah.
Like, yeah, like, she's like the Messiah, essentially, is kind of what her character turns out to be, I guess. Like, she was, yeah, it's this whole thing, but that's roughly Delphine. And then she ends up in hell.
And then, I mean, she does. That's eventually, sure.
I'm never gonna live that down.
All right, the last of our three main characters is Father Matthew. Father Matthew is I think like in his 30s, early 30s, priest who is struggling with both alcoholism and his sexuality, in as well as the collapse of the church. It becomes pretty clear that the Catholic Church has collapsed under the weight of the plague, and the people that have gotten into positions of power in the church are not good people. And so he's struggling with all of these things, as well as some stuff with his family in the past, which we get some flashbacks about too. I thought the priest was a really interesting character. He was, if Delphine is like the perfect moral compass, like Father Matthew is kind of like in the gray area between like the evil that maybe like you could argue Tomas started out as. Like Father Matthew wasn't evil, he wasn't really good either. In the boundaries of this world, he was very much a sinner. He was an alcoholic. He's a homosexual in a world where that's not okay, especially if you're a priest. But I thought he was a really interesting character. He, unlike Tomas, is very loving towards everybody, and to the point, and trusting as well, to the character's detriment from time to time. But I think that he also played both a big role in keeping Delphine safe, and he was also kind of the communicator when they needed to have like if they needed a charismatic person to persuade someone to let them into their town or to figure out directions. Like it was very clear that Tomas was not that person, and Delphine's a child, so the priest kind of acted as like the charismatic character, the one that was talking through the situations where, and then if diplomacy failed, then Tomas was there for the violence. But that was the father. He was a very interesting character. I thought he also had some interesting character development in the story. I don't know if Lauren wants to chime in and say he went to hell, since we don't know. He did die, but
I was not going to say that.
So those are our three main characters. There are other characters in the book, but I think we all agreed that those were the three.
Yeah.
That's the core. You're spending the most amount of time with these characters. They're encountering others along their journey, but it's really about the three of them.
Yep.
So we'll jump into our discussion questions. Our first one is kind of fun, and I can't wait for Barbara to answer it first because I already know how she's going to answer it. But how long do you think you're surviving in this world?
Yeah, nah, it's gonna be a no for me, dog. Like, and I already told Michael, like, if I'm not a chosen one, then I'm gonna nope out real quick. Like, I do not want to deal with any of this. So if I'm not chosen to fight for the good of the European French and Englishmen, then I'm just gonna be like, oh, there's a plague. Okay, bye. Like, no, thank you.
You're just gonna go get the plague, or
Barbara's jumping in the river with the demonic monster.
Yeah. You know what? I would just leave. I would just leave France and England and travel elsewhere.
And take the plague to other places?
Why would I have the plague? I don't talk to people anyways. Like, this would be ideally, this would be the place I would survive, because all you have to do is shut yourself in and don't talk to anyone. Easy peasy. I can do that.
Of course, you got to figure out like food and things like that too. But
yeah,
in the 1300s, that might have been a little different.
I don't think they had DoorDash back then.
Not unless you were a nobleman. You could have your servants go gather things for you,
and that's how you get the plague.
That's true.
I was gonna say that's probably how you get the plague. They bring it back with them.
So, I mean, I think I'm probably going to survive longer than Barbara, but not that that's much of a metric, because she's effectively going to be either hiding until she dies or going around licking doorknobs until she dies that way. So, I think that I would at least try to survive, try to avoid people that were sick. But it's a hard world to survive in, and the book makes that very clear, because it's not just the plague. Like, it's the fact that a lot of the world, like our society, has collapsed because of the plague, and so you've got lots of brigands and bandits that are more than willing to take your life, to take the things that you have, if you have something that's interesting to them. So I probably wouldn't
you
live
can
very long
survive
either.
the plague, but then you have to face the freaking statue come to life situation later on, or the corpse mobile at the end. Like, that was terrifying.
Lots of demonic.
We're talking
things.
like plague, evil people in general, demons, devils. Like, we got a lot going on. River
We do.
monsters. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like,
I would probably also just jump in the river with the river monster and call it a day.
No thanks.
So that
Me
would be
and
the
Barbara
horror scene
would
if
hole up until we died.
Barbara and Lauren would hole up together, and then they'd run out of food, and there'd be this horrific scene of them holding hands, walking out to the river together, and
That'd be so sad.
slowly walking into the water and being consumed by the creature that's there. Anyway, that's our fun starter question. Wasn't that fun, guys? Talking about how quickly we would die in this horrible dark world.
Sure, I
so,
guess.
so fun and lighthearted.
Let's get to our first serious question, though. Buehlman weaves historical events of 14th century France with heavy religious allegory and fantasy. How does the grounded historical reality of the Dark Ages make the supernatural elements like possessed statues or demons feel more terrifying and plausible? I think that for he did a really good job grounding the story in that world. Like this time in history was not a fun time to exist for regular people. Like even without the plague, like your life expectancy wasn't super high, and so with the plague added on top of that, like I mean, I think historians have looked back at this time and like there was a very real chance that like humanity went extinct, right? At least in that part of the world where the plague was happening in Europe. And so it would be terrifying. And so I think that having that as the backdrop, and then it made the supernatural elements feel even scarier because you're already like it's kind of like in The Walking Dead where you've already got the zombies that are walking around and could kill you at any time, but then also there's human beings here and they're also evil because they can be now in this collapsed society. And so in this book you've got that, and then on top of that these supernatural demons and stuff. Like there's multiple times throughout the book, at least twice that I can think of, where they pull up to an area and Delphine is like, no, like you can't go in there. You can't go with these people. And to the point where like, and they're like, you have to come with us. And she climbs up a tree to get out of their range. And then they go in and you find out later, much at the end of that chapter, usually that they were likely demons that they were hanging out with and they were being tempted off the path because the demon's goal was clearly to dispatch Delphine. And so it was wild. So yeah, I think that made that feel a lot more terrifying, especially in those scenes where you don't realize how dire those circumstances were until like around 75% through those chapters. Then there'd start to be cracks in the reality that they were seeing, and it'd be like, wait, what? And it became pretty clear that this was demonic forces at work, which did make it a lot scarier that they were being tricked. And maybe they should have listened to the child that was with them, but hey, I guess people don't like listening to children. So
I feel like children often know better than we do. Sometimes at least, but I don't know that I have a whole lot to add to that, honestly. I think that, like Michael said, it's the reality of that time and being able to like paint that picture even without the supernatural stuff. Like it was dark enough without like people dying of the plague, poor little girl, like dad decomposing in the house and having to figure out how they're gonna move him, and like the disgusting conditions that they were all living in. And then yeah, you throw in like freaking statues coming to life and all these other crazy things. There were multiple times that I feel like I texted the group and said this is like nightmare fuel, like on at least 2 occasions.
Yes.
And then I don't think I texted them when I had the same thought at the end because I'm like, oh, we're about to record anyway. But there was like a peak nightmare fuel moment at the end. I just feel like, yeah, I think it starting with something that is in reality and then like making it even scarier. Like the author did a good job of that. I will give credit where credit is due.
I would say this is such a great breeding ground because if you think about it, when society collapses, when we are at our worst, it makes total sense that quote unquote demons and devils, whatever you want to call them, this is their bread and butter. Like a plague is ravishing these countries, and it pretty much shows like what you are willing to do as a human to get by. And most people are willing to backstab other people. And it's like the perfect breeding ground for these creepy things to come out and play. And so to me, that makes perfect sense because like in a happy society, these people are not going to be tempted to do these things that these little demons are coming around being like, ooh, hoo, hoo. We have a bunch load of food in this little area and all you have to do is like murder people for it, or we have all this stuff that you want, all you have to do is X, Y, and Z. Like, most people are going to be like, nah, dog, we're happy. Like, why would we take that? So yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. Like, it's completely plausible, and it makes it creepier because it's like, yes, the plague is one thing, and then you're dealing with all these other things. Can you trust what you're seeing? Can you believe what it's great. Like it. Yeah.
Throughout the early parts of the book, we question Delphine's true nature. Is she a saint, a witch, or a manifestation of something else? How does this ambiguity affect the trust that Tomas and Father Matthew place in her?
I mean, I feel like they want to, and at multiple instances have said, like, that she's good, or that alluded to that she is a source for light, or that she kind of should be trusted. But then there's a lot of times where they're like wary to trust her because there's so much craziness going on. Like, I can't really say that I blame them. At every turn, it feels like they're trying, people are, or demons or whoever, whatever you want to call them, are trying to trick them or mess with the way that they're thinking. And so I think that it's natural for them to question her true nature. But I think ultimately they do eventually place more full trust in her. Like, there for a while, she's like, "Don't go," and they're like, "We're going." Like you don't have to, but and then I think like they learn their lesson, so to speak, eventually, that maybe she does know what she's talking about, and maybe she does have the best interests in heart.
So I feel like as readers, we probably do trust her, right? Like, I don't think I ever had a moment where I was like, she's a true witch. Like, I don't think that's supposed to be, but like for the other two characters, I always find it interesting because like at one point Tomas is like, I have to make sure she doesn't do some crazy thing because people are, as soon as she does like these, if you want to call them miracles, we don't call it in the book, but whatever you want to call it, like these crazy powers that she has, he's like, people are gonna see that and they're gonna be like, which I find so funny because it's like when all these devils and demons are coming out and doing these crazy things, and Delphine is telling Tomas and Father Matthew, like, don't go into these places, there's bad things there, bad things are gonna happen, don't do it. And they're like, whatever. And it took them literally forever to figure out that, hey, yeah, these are weird things, demons going on. It's so easy to be like, that stuff is normal, that's okay, but as soon as someone does something good, we're like, witch. It's so interesting that God, yeah, can't be trusted. She healed them. What? Which, it's so funny to me that like there's a one chapter in the book where it's like this little like saintly child going around, like an angel looking kid going like singing around the town and doing these creepy little cartwheels and being like, oh, we're saving the town, they're saving the world. And he was like a little dead kid in disguise, right? And everyone was like, oh, that's fine. And then you get this little girl and she's like, oh no, these people are bad, here, I'll show you. And they're like, no. It's like, what? Like, you're so willing to trust this weird singing child, but like this one, no. So I found that really interesting, but that probably is how it happens. Like, it's easy for us, I guess, to trust one versus the other. But it was a very interesting thing. And then you can see the shift, especially for Father Matthew. Like, it was very, like, it only took a few instances, and someone even asked him like, oh, why are you following this girl? Like, she could be evil. And he's like, no, there's no way that she is. Like, she does these things that I'm supposed to be believing in as someone of the church, and it's happening right in front of my eyes. And yeah, I was kind of a doubter at first, but like now I'm not. And then you can see Tomas too, like, I feel like he believes it, but he's not allowing himself to believe it because like he's always like, oh, people are going to think she's a witch, she's going to do this and this and this, and he keeps doubting her throughout the whole thing. Ironic, his name is Thomas doubting Tomas. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Maybe that was intentional. But I mean, yeah, so I think you guys covered this pretty well, but I think that Barbara kind of hit the nail on the head when she said that Tomas didn't necessarily believe her at first, but he did recognize that some of the stuff she's doing is a little cray-cray, and people are going to label her as a witch. And I think that that's in some ways like a it meant to mirror like the bigotry and sexism that would have existed in this time in history too. Like, so you talked about how like they were perfectly fine with like the boy doing whatever he was doing, but then when a girl does something, well, she's got to be a witch. Better burn her at the stake or whatever they did to witches in this time period. But it was interesting. This question is interesting from a reader's perspective because we are obviously part of the time getting Delphine's perspective, so we know that she actually is communicating with angels, or at least even if we did have some doubt, it was like, well, maybe it's a devil pretending to be an angel. I thought at one point or another in the book, but she's communicating with something. But if you look at this from Tomas and Matthew's perspective, Matthew believed, I think, from the get, which makes more sense because he's a priest and he wants to believe that there's this kind of good in the world that's going to come and combat this evil that's suffocating everything. But Tomas is like, there's this little girl's like, yeah, I'm talking to the angels, and it's like, well, maybe she's crazy. And I think most people, if you ask most people and they honestly answered, if someone tells you I'm talking to angels and there's devils over there, you're going to be like, this person is fit for a straitjacket, and you're not going to believe them. And so obviously the trust does come eventually because it becomes pretty clear around like the 40, like they start to see angels and demons. I can't remember exactly when that was in the book where they see the first fight between angels and demons. um, but it's pretty hard to deny the existence of the religious aspect of this at that point because everybody can see.
Yeah, but some people still thought it was a dream. Like even
They
Tomas was
did.
like, "Did I dream this?" Or like, "This is actually
Yep.
happening." So it's like I said, it's very easy for people to be like, "Oh, it's just a dream."
Yep, that is very true. Let's see. Our next question. Father Matthew wrestles with his own deep seated demons. Why do you think he ultimately decides to sacrifice himself to protect Delphine? What does his arc suggest about the nature of forgiveness?
He ultimately decides to sacrifice himself because he truly does believe that Delphine is here to save everyone, and he believes in the good in her. And I think, I'm not sure if, I guess, I mean, it's hard to say. I think maybe when she says, like, we have this whole scene like right before where like he gets tempted with some stuff, but like he knows in his heart like that's not who he truly was and is. And she even asks him after he got tempted and almost killed her by a demon devil, whatever you want to call him. She goes like, "Oh, like you wouldn't like kill me, right?" And he's like, "No." And then she's like, "Not even for wine," because that truly is kind of like, I feel like, his huge addiction. And he's like, "No, not even for wine." And I think that is kind of a turning point for him where he realizes like, and that she really doesn't care about all his faults and his demons, that she really does see the good in him. And I think that's why he's willing to sacrifice himself for her, because I think maybe at that point she says that, and then another point she also says like to him after he told his story about him liking being gay, essentially she goes, "I don't care. Like, I would still forgive you, or I still care about you," and all this stuff. And I think that was kind of maybe like the weight lifted off of him, and he realizes that all these things that he's been carrying, this weight, like she doesn't care, and they're still good in him, and that's why he did that, because I mean, he saved her life essentially. I mean, Tomas and him both have saved her from time to time, but like I think that was the ultimate self-sacrifice for him, and I think that's him forgiving himself too, because I think
Yeah.
beforehand I think he was scared of dying. That's why he kept hiding from things, because he thought maybe he would go to hell if he did. And I think this is his way of being like, maybe there's something better for me.
Yeah, yeah, Father Matthew's story was, it was really well written and it was really heartbreaking in a lot of ways. Like when we get that really long backstory, that was such a heartbreaking story to learn, like that he had kind of like fallen in love with this young man in his village, and then how that played out. And he clearly thinks because of the religion at the time that like he's sinning and he's going to go to hell because of the way that he's been acting and the feelings that he has. And so seeing, I think Delphine at one point kind of, he doesn't tell her, like it's not like they have a conversation about his sexuality, but she kind of tells him like you're good. You're a good person. And I think that takes a lot of this weight that he's had on him forever off, and that he gets to sacrifice his life to save someone at the very least that he sees as like a saint or a savior for this world. It was really important to him. And I think, like Barbara mentioned, we see him in that moment in some ways like forgive himself and maybe also recognize that he didn't have anything to ask for forgiveness for in the first place, at least not that part of him, which was cool. And then I think Delphine also had to forgive herself a little bit because there's that super heartbreaking scene after he dies where she tries to bring him back to life, and like whatever it is that's communicating with her tells her that you're not powerful enough for that yet. Like he comes back for a second and then is gone, and that was a really heartbreaking scene also. It was So I think that he ultimately decides to sacrifice himself to protect her because he sees her as the thing that's going to save the world. And I think part of the reason that he thinks that is because she kind of saved him in some way, and that was cool to see unfold.
I like you guys' take better, so I'm just gonna say ditto.
Fair, fair. Let's see our next question. The central question of the book deals with maintaining belief when God appears silent. How do different characters like Tomas, the priest, and the false pope handle their faith during the horrors of the plague? Yeah, I mean, becomes pretty clear. It becomes pretty clear throughout the book that the angels, when they do come, are fighting the war, but God is nowhere to be found. God is not calling the shots from anywhere. God is not communicating with anybody. He's just not there. And I think that Tomas has pretty much ridden off his faith. I think that I think he was a faithful man, and then he saw the church and his religion excommunicate him for worldly means that had nothing to do with God or faith or any of that. And I think because of that, he became a not religious person. That's not, he abandoned his religion because he saw his religion turn against him for things that didn't make sense in that aspect. The priest, I think, has a is still very religious, very much a believer, and very much, we kind of talked about in the last question, struggles with that because he feels like in some ways his very existence is like counter to this thing that he's put his faith in. And obviously the false pope is just a truly maybe one of the most evil characters of the book. The cardinals and the church's leadership that we encounter when you finally get to Avignon are great examples of evil humans taking advantage of disaster to try to use their religion to progress their own means and their own power and station within society. And that's what we see a lot of there.
Oh, sounds familiar. I mean, I don't know that I have a whole lot of insight on this one. I didn't feel like Tomas had much religious anything throughout the book as far as like an ongoing faith goes. I think he had faith in Delphine towards like the latter half, which I guess ultimately she ends up being like Jesus or whatever. So kind of faith. Um, but as far as the others, I think Michael did a pretty good job summarizing that.
Yeah, it's what I think. The priest is someone who had faith and then lost it somewhere along the way. I think Tomas never had faith, and I think it's his faith in Delphine that grew, not necessarily like on the Catholic Church or religion. He just had faith in her and her abilities and what she can do. I don't know why we're even mentioning the false pope. He literally is a devil in disguise. So, like, no faith there.
This is
The opposite of faith. I think it's just like each of those characters, and obviously Delphine has always had faith, and it just gets, I guess, progressively better. So I think you get like all three facets of people, like someone who believed in it, lost it somewhere along the way, and then found it again. Someone who never had any faith at all, and maybe not necessarily believes in it, believes in one person, and that's enough to sway them into, the for the good of people, not necessarily the good in the faith or the church or whatever. And then someone who wholeheartedly believes in it, and that's kind of like you see their whole arc with that.
All right, moving on to our next question. The author sketches a complex, often bleak picture of the medieval Catholic Church, culminating in Avignon. Is this portrayal wholly negative, or are there nuances to the religious orders and figures that they meet?
So do not have an extensive knowledge of the Catholic Church in general. So I don't know that I'm going to be the best person to answer this question. I felt like that it was a pretty negative portrayal, and I don't know the accuracy of that for medieval Catholic Church. But yeah, I don't know. Barbara, don't you have Catholics upbringing history that you could shed some light for us?
Put on the spot.
I know, right? So like I feel like as a whole everyone knows medieval Catholic Church has never been great. Like they did some terrible things. A lot of terrible things in the name of God, essentially. And I feel like they definitely use that as a cloak to be like, oh, righteous figure. So that's why we're going to do A, B, and C. So I think medieval Catholic Church has never had a great light on it. I think this was definitely, I think it leaned into a little tropey-esque things for the Catholic Church at this time. Not to say that I mean tropes are based off of certain things, I feel like, or not even tropes, what is it called? Like what is the word we're looking for? Help me out here.
Stereotypes.
Stereotypes. Yep. Thank you. So stereotypes, like that, there's a reason stereotypes are a stereotype. So I think this book leaned into a little heavily, I think, at times, which isn't a bad thing. I think I'm not sure. I feel like as a whole, I think it was portrayed negatively for the most part. Like you meet every character you meet that is part of the church is crappy outside of Matthew, the priest, essentially, you know, like, and he's the only one who I would say is like a neutral in the sense that like he's neither good nor bad, and that's, I feel like that's a normal human being. Like if you are someone in the Catholic Church and you just think you're holier than thou, like I don't know if I agree with that. But I feel like as a whole, the book definitely, I feel like portrayed it as a negative, because even like the Pope, the real Pope, not even the fake Pope, like even the real Pope was a terrible person. Like we get a small chapter of the real Pope's point of view, and it's creepy as F. Like he's banging his, I mean, they're not blood related. It's, I think, his brother's wife. He's somehow like it's not blood, like I said, it's not blood related, like it's not like his niece, but it is his niece from a marriage of some sort, I think. And that's weird.
It was super messed up. Yeah.
I didn't really like that chapter, to be honest with you. It was really,
I don't know like, why they even included it.
That's what I'm so saying. Weird. Like there's a lot of chapters I feel like are not necessary, and it's just like, let me, like, as a reader, I already know that like this medieval Catholic Church in this fake setting aren't good. Like he already painted that enough for us, you know? Like we had enough instances where we saw that. I felt like there's no need for that chapter personally. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here, but like I really trying to think of all the characters that we met. There's literally just one, and it's the priest that we travel with, and he still struggle bust, you know. So it's like I do feel like as a whole it was not great, and that's fine. Like whatever, you know, however they want to paint it, it's, I don't know, it is what it is. Maybe if you're a religious person you might not enjoy that, but like you do have to remember that they weren't great either during the medieval times. So it's like you can't, you know, I don't know.
I mean, I think that specific chapter that you're saying you could have done without was specifically possibly there to highlight that the church at this time was pretty evil without the demonic influence. Like there was already some not great stuff going on. Um, Also, I'll highlight. I read an interview with Christopher Buehlman where he talked about how he is very well educated on the church doctrine, but now considers himself agnostic. If that gives you any inkling as to how he feels about the Catholic faith.
Feel like that was
Um,
pretty obvious, though. Like,
yeah,
this is definitely written on someone who doesn't believe.
but I think that he did a really good job portraying the medieval Catholic Church because, as Barbara mentioned, it was not a great organization at that time. There was a lot of corruption, a lot of bad things happening. But I think he did a really good job highlighting what you hear if you read about the church in that time. That didn't trickle down for the most part to like the actual like local priest. Like your local priest was not an evil bad person. They were usually someone who genuinely they were a believer and they wanted to help people. And I think we saw that with Matthew, as well as one other priest that's mentioned through the story earlier on. And so I think he did a really good job highlighting that it's like the hierarchical structure of the Catholic Church that was the evil aspect with the cardinals and the Pope and all that stuff. And yes, that's super blasphemous, probably for someone who is a believer. But that I think he did a good job portraying how we know at least aspects of it were at that time from history. Let's see. Next question. How does the battle between the angels and demons at Avignon serve as a resolution to the personal battles fought by Thomas and Delphine? I'll go first on this one. So the angels. So this was one of the cooler scenes. I wish there would have been more scenes of the angels and the demons fighting than there were. I also want to illustrate that the angels in this book are not the angels that you think of when you think of like angels, like they're men with wings and they're angelic. No, these are biblically accurate angels, which are terrifying creatures. If just look up, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, look up biblically accurate angel. Horrifying, and that's what they are here. And so seeing that battle as kind of the backdrop of the finale of the book, I think does serve as the resolution in some ways between the personal battles fought by Tomas and Delphine. Delphine is fighting to get them here so that she can do the right thing and hopefully save the world. Tomas is also fighting his own personal battles with demons, and so we're kind of seeing that clash happen at a larger scale. And I think that it was really well done. That particular scene was very well written as to the scope of that battle and what was happening between the angels and the demons.
Just as an aside, I googled biblically accurate angels. It's mostly eyeballs.
Yes, yeah, it's terrifying.
I don't think I've ever done that before. Interesting. So, yeah, I think that, yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would add a whole bunch of that. I feel like Michael covered most everything.
I don't really know how to answer this. So it's like a win and a losing win lose like scenario type thing. Like both Tomas and Delphine pretty much sacrifice themselves for the resolution for the angels to actually come and defeat the demons. And like the angels ended up winning, yes, but like I feel like it seemed like, or at least I read it as like a huge loss. And maybe that was the same with like Tomas and Delphine, but they kind of, I feel like both already knew that they were going to die at this point, you know, like they would have to sacrifice themselves for this to happen, for the angels to have like a fighting chance type thing. I don't, that's how I read it. I have no idea. That's how I took it, and how I saw it was like everyone essentially made sacrifices for this to happen, and it wasn't like your stereotypical like, oh, all the heroes won. Like you know, quite a lot happened here to get to this point.
I think that's a good description that you gave, Barbara. Let's see. Next question. Discuss Thomas's ultimate fate. Despite his heroic sacrifice, he goes to hell, as Lauren told you at the beginning of this podcast. What does his descent and his eventual return say about hell, redemption, and personal mindset? It's interesting. I was, I guess, a little surprised that Thomas went to hell when he died. Just because there was all that time put into Delphine working with him to try to get him to forgive his wife and kind of move past these feelings so he could let all that heaviness go and live his life. So
I mean, they
I
explain why that happened to him, though.
am I just forgetting what can you
Probably.
enlighten us then? Enlighten me and the listeners?
So, if you remember, Delphine slash God slash Jesus, whatever you want to call her at this point, when she's coming to rescue Tomas from hell, she mentions, or even like the creepy person that's like the gate warden person before you get to hell that like kept siphoning him into hell. I think maybe it was them that had explained it to him, but they said like the cord was like the angels won, the demons weren't supposed to take everyone to hell, all the souls that died during that battle, but they did, even though they weren't supposed to do that. But it happened. Like they cheated one more time, the demons did, and essentially probably got what they wanted, which is just like more souls going to hell. So that's why Thomas went. Not because he actually
Okay.
deserved to go. It's because per rules as written, they weren't supposed to do this, but they took all the souls that died at that battle to hell. And I think that's why like maybe Tomas wasn't the only one who like they
Gotcha.
saved back type thing. Maybe other ones, we don't know. We didn't get that, but that's how I understood it.
No,
could be
I
wrong.
remember that after you mentioned that. Yeah, so demons be demoning and going against the rules. I mean, it was so the best part of all of that was getting to see Christopher Buehlman's version of hell, and it was very terrifying. For those of you
It
that
was
you
very-
can't see us because we don't put video, but Lauren's eyes got really big when I started talking about that because it was definitely
Yeah.
creepy, and I'm gonna let her talk about her terrifying experience with that in a second. But it was a cool scene. I mean, all this stuff is happening. Delphine, what'd you say, Barbara? Delphine slash God slash Jesus slash
Yeah.
whoever.
Whoever.
I mean, I think Jesus, right? Because of the stabbing. Anyway.
But I mean, isn't Jesus God? Isn't God Jesus? Isn't that the whole thing, Michael?
Yeah, I guess. So it was it was interesting to see his version of hell and see her come and save him, and then the epilogue as well, which we'll talk about on the next question. But Lauren, why don't you tell us about your experience with Christopher Buehlman's version of hell?
My experience in hell.
Tomas went to hell.
Yeah. So definitely nightmare fuel. The most vivid description that I remember, like being able to see and that I can't unsee now, is it a beast or a vehicle of some sort that like has corpses? It's made up of corpses from this plague, right? Like just from whatever. And so it's got, like human beings that are like reincarnated, but then they're like also dead with limbs falling off and like shit falling out of them, and they're like used as the arms and the legs, and it's coming at you, and it's just like a bunch of dead. It was very graphic, and yeah, no, thank you. Who comes up with that, sir? Excuse me.
Quick addition to that, I will say we've talked about Christopher Buehlman could have described a lot of things in more detail and better in this book, I think. But when it came to the demonic creatures and the monsters and that kind of the body horror of that, he was very good. It was very well described.
No, I'm just kidding.
I would say I wasn't surprised that he went to hell because of the explanation we were given. Like I mentioned earlier, like that makes sense that demons, like Michael said, be demoning, like they were like, hee, our last hurrah. It was interesting to get to see how like personal hell for Tomas was and all that. And he even mentions like, gosh, I didn't think I was that bad. Maybe not hell, but like at least purgatory, like so that was interesting because like even like I think he realized that like he was kind of a terrible, where he was doing some terrible things, but at the end, like, he thought, like, he was following Delphine, like, her voice was in his head, like, don't murder, don't do this, and all this. And he's like, man, I made some progress here. Like, I thought, I thought that would have counted for something. And then come to find out it did count for something. It just, he kind of got cheated. And that's why Delphine / God / Jesus, whatever you want to call it, that entity came and saved him. And then he got pretty much a second chance at life. And when he did get that second chance of life, he pretty much turned it around very quickly and never took up arms again. Like, he even left his sword and said, I don't want to be a sellsword. I don't want to be a knight. I don't want any of this. Like, I learned my lesson type thing. So and he obviously did persevere, even though at one point he was pretty much about to give up, I feel like, and that's when Delphine came to save him. But like, yeah.
All right, so next question. What did you think of the ending? And I want to specify, since we just talked about the ending of the actual book, specifically I'm talking about the epilogue, what we get in the epilogue here. What did you think of the epilogue? So the ending that we got for Delphine and Tomas in the epilogue.
Yeah, I felt like confused at first because I'm like, wait, did we just like dream up all of this? Was this just all because they go back and it's like she's back in the house where she's trying to figure out what to do with her dad's body, and like where she's gonna go try to talk to the strangers outside, which is how the book opens essentially. But this time obviously it goes differently, and so part of me was like, well, is this just like a whole second chance? Is this a reincarnation thing? Because I know some people like religiously believe in that. And so I felt like I liked the ending. I thought giving him a second chance at life was good, and maybe he can be less of an asshole this time around. But yeah, I think like before we started recording, I had talked to you guys about just my confusion on what, because I feel like it could be interpreted, but I think, yeah, she saved him, whoever she is, God, Jesus, Delphine. And then we get to see then what that looks like as him, I guess, trying to go a different route. I feel like I wish that we got to see a little bit more of what's next, but I think I understand why he ended it when he did. So.
I mean, I was satisfied with the ending. Like, we get to see that he pretty much turned his whole life around. Like I mentioned earlier, didn't pick up the sword anymore, just turned into a farmer, and essentially did adopt her and see, like, they actually did have a father-daughter relationship, because in the epilogue, like, he is a priest, so he does turn to the faith. He turns into a priest, and she is a nun, and we kind of get a resolution between him and his wife. Michael and I were discussing this, and I was a little confused as to parts of it. Like, clearly it is his wife, because like they do the whole like 3 taps with their rings, but like what I didn't understand was, is it implied that his children actually did survive, and his actual, like, because I think he did have kids with her, right? I'm not, like, I thought he mentioned he had like a son with her.
I think he had one child with her.
Yeah, and so like we don't know if the child and then the grandchild that she asked for him to pray for are of his line, or if it is from the other. Like, I feel like it's left ambiguous to whether what she actually did happen, or if that was all in like like people lied to him and he believed them, I feel like, or unless I completely missed that. So I would be very curious to know what other people think actually did happen. And maybe she did all do all that stuff, and he comes to realize that Delphine was right. Like, he should have just he forgave her essentially for all that. So I thought it was a bittersweet ending for like that, but it was interesting to see that that's what he chose to do, is to be a priest. And her, I mean, for her, I guess that's not shocking that she turned into a nun, so
yeah. I mean, it was sweet to see that, the book starts with this like refusal to bury the body of Delphine's father, and then ends with him going back and giving the dad a proper Christian burial. I think that was allowed, like, that aspect to kind of, for Tomas's growth to kind of come full circle. And then getting that scene with his ex-wife was kind of like just the cherry on top. I think that to what you were saying, Barbara, I think that what he described happening did happen, but I think it wasn't quite how he described it. Like, I don't think it was the wife that was unfaithful and cheated. If you think about like what happened to Tomas, he was excommunicated and run out of his village because a more powerful man wanted his land. That more powerful man also took his wife. And I think that if you think about Europe in the 1300s, like, women were seen as property. And so I think when Thomas was excommunicated, that man just took what he believed was his. And so then the wife did go with someone else, but I don't think it was by choice. And I think that's kind of what we get in that final scene with the little ring taps, is that she knows who he is, and there's still that connection there, maybe, even though it can never happen because of the world they live in. But
Right. And plus he also mentions that Delphine is his only child, so I think he's written that part of his life out.
I think you're right. But I like the epilogue a lot. I think it did leave it ambiguous a little bit, but I think that was intentional. Like, the plague happened, and yes, the angels did win, but they don't just snap their fingers and make everything perfect. Humanity has to figure all that out for themselves and heal from this awful thing that happened to the world. So yeah, I really liked the ending. I thought the epilogue. Without the epilogue, I don't think I would have liked the ending as much, but I really liked the ending since we got that epilogue. That really brought everything full circle while still leaving aspects of the world open-ended. So, final question. Do you think you'll read other books by this author?
No, I'm good. I'm sorry. I can't read another book where it takes 60% for me to be really involved in the book. Like, I feel terrible saying that, because like, this is nothing like that one dude's book, that vampire book that was just outright awful. Like, I didn't like any aspect of that book. I will not ever be picking up anything from that author ever again. Like, I've written that man off.
Wait, which one was that?
The vampire, like, book killing women's club one. Like,
the
something,
Southern Guide to
the one that we were all so excited
Hendrix
for.
or something. Gendrix,
Yes.
I don't know.
Grady Hendrix.
Yeah, like, absolutely not. I like that one. I think I will vehemently tell people, like, this is terrible. Don't even pick up this book. So I feel bad putting these people in the same category, but they kind of are. I guess let me rephrase that. For that other book, like, if someone were to suggest to read that book, I would be like, no, thank you. I'm not, even for the podcast, that's just going to be a month I'm going to skip, because I have zero interest. If someone like strong-armed us and was like, oh, you have to read another of his books, blah, 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 blah. I guess, like, if for the podcast, if I have to, I might. I don't know if I'm like 100% in, but I'm sorry. 60% to enjoy a book. Like, my time is precious to me. I don't want to take that long to enjoy a book. Like, eventually, did I enjoy it towards the end? Like, yes, but that's a long time. And there's a lot of stuff that I still found issues with. And I mean, granted, like, I didn't realize this was his first novel, and this is a much older book. So, benefit of the doubt, you should only get better as a writer. Hopefully you should, so maybe, and he seems to have actually take critiques well, which I will give him kudos for that, because there are a lot of authors that don't, and they don't see any issues that they have with what they've written. I appreciate that he's willing to take that criticism and make those edits. So that's a good thing, I guess, for him. Like, maybe his other books are better in that regard. So I guess I would preface, like, if for the podcast someone were to recommend another of his book, then I would be willing to read it. I just personally don't think I would pick up another novel of his just for cheese and giggles. Like, I don't see myself doing, like, oh, like, I liked it just well enough. Like, I don't think so. I think there's a lot. 60. I just can't get over that. 60%. Like, that's a long ass time.
No, I mean, I think that's fair. My answer to this question is yes. I own one of his other books, so yes, I do intend to read it. The Black Tongue Thief. It's a dark fantasy comedy, and it sounds very
Interesting.
interesting. So I will be reading that. I'll let you know, Barbara, how it is
Yeah, I'd be
whenever I do
curious.
read
I'd
it.
be curious.
Because it's supposed to be quite good. It came out just a few years ago. It's his part of a new trilogy that he's been working on. So
I think I'm similarly with Barbara as far as like I'm not gonna go seek out another book by this author. Um, but if we were made to read it for the podcast, then I would sigh and I wouldn't be super stoked about it, but I would do it. And who knows, maybe if Michael reads this other book and has good reviews or whatever, then.
Yeah,
But I think he overall enjoyed this one more though than us, anyways. So,
I think
although
so.
you both gave it pretty high rating, we're getting there.
I wouldn't say. I mean,
High for me.
well, yeah, it's because
yeah.
you're a notoriously critical
Yeah.
scorer. So
I feel like
That's
I'm.
true, but if it
I'm
takes
not.
me 60% to be interested in a book, I'm not going to give it over like a 5. But
well,
I'm
speaking
like
of
very
that, let's
critical.
talk about our ratings. So, Barbara, what did you give?
Yeah, I'm
Between Two
sure people
Fires?
probably would be surprised that I gave us as high of a score as I did. I did give it a 7, but like I said, I enjoyed the later chapters. There's still certain things I find hugely problematic. It's always going to be the way women are written. I feel like, to be honest with you, Delphine could have been a little boy and it wouldn't have changed anything except for like the creepy rapey scenes. And so it's like you could have made it a boy and completely removed the creepy rapey scenes. So like why even have the creepy rapey scenes to begin with? I feel like as a male author, that tends to be what they like to shock readers. They're like, rape, women rape, perfect. That'll get them. And it's like, I feel like you can do better. I truly feel like you can do better to paint a terrible world. We can do better. So do it. You know, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm going to be very critical in that aspect, but like, come on, you know. So I just hopefully that he gets better at the writing women as a whole, because they're really, outside of Delphine, there's not a woman character that's great. Like there's barely any, to be honest. And the couple that we get, they're weird. Like, you know, outside of the mom, and then
It is like a male-dominated book. I'm realizing.
yeah,
There was that one character
the mom.
that kind of treated her like a daughter. Yeah,
Right.
the
Was a mom and she lost her child
she
type
lost
thing.
her little girl.
But like, yeah, but both the both of them were good people. Like, it's not just, you know. So I don't know. So and there's a lot of things that I could have done without in the novel. I didn't like the way, like, Tomas, and like Lauren mentioned it, and this is my grievance with it. Tomas felt like he was a 12-year-old boy who learned how to cuss for the first time in life and was just doing that. And like, I get, once again, I feel like it shows that it's poor writing, if you ask me, that to show how crass a character is, you default to that. I feel like there's other things you can do. Like, you can mention it a few, but like, the it just, honestly, I do feel like it felt like a little 12-year-old boy who just learned how to cuss, and then he's like, yay. Which is interesting, because outside of that, like, I think he's good at writing dialogue between characters. Like, there's moments that I was like, wow, this is really good, I enjoy this, you know. And then like Tomas would just do, like, say the stupidest thing, and you'd be like, the hell, you know. Like, well, that wasn't needed. Like, why are we doing this? Like, we get it. There's like, trust us as readers that we can pick up on the nuances that you're trying to give us. You don't have to beat it over our heads. And as a first time, like, author, you can see certain little things that I'm sure he probably has gotten better at the craft of writing and stuff. So I and why I gave it a 7 for later, because it does get better. It just takes a second, and there's still some issues later in the novel, like certain chapters. Like I said, I don't think it's needed per se, because as a reader, we understand what you're getting at. You've already shown all this stuff. I feel like certain things just was there just for shock value, and I don't think that, like, he described the creepy demons well. You don't need to show a creepy priest doing that kind of stuff, or you don't need to show that this and this and this is doing, like, I don't know. That's just my 20 seconds blurb about it. But I did enjoy it at the end. It just was rough getting there.
No, I mean, I think that's mostly fair. I think that he's a fantastic writer when it comes to dialogue. I think he really writes dialogue extremely well, and that's one thing I will be excited about reading in the newer book is like, because I'm sure that's just gotten better, or at least I would assume since he continues writing that it's gotten better. I think that I hope that he learned that you don't have to have the rape scenes to tell a story. I think that unfortunately, what Barbara mentioned, like if Delphine had been a little boy, that it wouldn't have been. I think it probably still would have been because we had a young man character later in the book that was getting assaulted by the cardinal, and that was a. So I think it still would have happened if it was a little boy in this story. But I don't think that was necessary, and I like that he did take the critique later on and listen to his fans and listen to the women talk about that, and he did remove that whole chapter. Like that speaks to growth, personal growth is for him, which is cool.
For sure.
A lot of authors, male authors specifically, would not. And so
I wouldn't even say male authors. I know quite a few female authors that people have said, "Hey, this is problematic," and they're like, "I don't care." So
they just don't care.
Yeah, I don't think it's just
think
male authors. I think it's just certain authors.
Got it. Then I'll stick with my first comment. Certain authors wouldn't do that. But I gave the book a 7.5. I really liked it. I really liked it at the beginning. I really liked it at the end. The middle got a little slow, but I think that his dialogue was really well written, and the character development. I really liked the three main characters. I don't have anything like that where I hated reading this character. Even though they weren't good people necessarily, I did enjoy reading about them. The one thing I'll add, since Barbara talked about the cursing and how he cursed like a 12-year-old boy, I went back and looked at it after because her and I had a conversation at the beginning of the book before Tomas is traveling with Delphine. He doesn't curse as much with the brigands. So I think that while it may have been overdone, I think the author wrote him cursing more around Delphine because he the character knew that Delphine didn't like it. And so I think he cursed more than he normally did just to irritate Delphine. Was it overdone? I think so. I think it was a little excessive. But I looked at he actually didn't curse as much with the brigand evil men as he did with this child. And I think that was possibly to be a little bit of like a comedic element that it irritated her. And she was always like, why do you have to cuss so much? But it was a little bit overdone. I'll give you that. But yeah, my score is a 7.5.
I gave it a 6.5 for all the reasons that I feel like I already talked about. I feel like I was interested, so I almost DNF'd it early on, and then it re-interested me, I guess, about, I don't know, 30% in, and then it got like really slow, like for a hot minute. And that was, I think, when Barbara and I were both texting, like, this is a struggle to get it done. And then I feel like it did pick back up when I was probably about 25% from the end. So I didn't want to give it too low of a score because of those things, because I think that, like Michael mentioned, like he did write characters well, not well. I don't know how to say that. He described horrific things with great detail, and though they were nightmare fuel, and I did not appreciate my eyeballs having to visualize that, it was well written. And there were other aspects that were well written, so I wanted to give credit where credit was due. And I honestly was going to give it a 5.5, but I bumped it up to a 6.5 just because he took out that one chapter after receiving feedback from female people. But it sucks that it's not like removed across the board. So like you could very easily get an Audible copy that has it. So
yeah, my Kindle also has the old one, and so that I read that.
So
and
I guess it's good that he tried, but it's still out there.
Yeah, which is weird because like I have Kindle books where they have updated my version of it to fix whatever else. So I'm just like maybe my.
That's weird. I wonder why it didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It could be also that I turn off sometimes when I'm reading, I turn off the Wi-Fi to not like update books and stuff because I don't like when they update my books. I want to, so that's probably a me thing. It's a me problem.
Well, I think it would be fair to say that both of you at one point or another wanted to DNF this book, and both of you are both not unhappy that you finished the book.
Right.
Would that be a fair statement?
I would say so. There's like
Yes.
certain, like that one Hendrix book, I would have been happy not finishing it because it doesn't get better. If anything, it gets worse. So
yeah.
That was so long ago, and Barbara still feels so
I
strongly about it.
vehemently still feel strong ways about that, man. Yes, 100%.
Well, we've made it to the end of another episode. As always, make sure you're following Badass Literature for free in your favorite podcast app. Give us a rating and leave us a review if they allow you to. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. Our handle is @BadassLitPod on Instagram, Facebook, and Goodreads. Working on getting us a Fable account set up as well. So we'll be there sometime soon. Barbara, bring us home.
I always want to make such a stupid joke. I'm not. I will resist so you guys don't have to have your ears bleed. Anyways, have feedback about today's episode. Well, you can contact us by writing to badassliteraturesociety@gmail.com. You can also send us a DM or leave a comment on any of our social media handles.
As always, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. I'm Michael.
I'm Barbara.
And I'm Lauren.
Bye.
Don't let the creepy stone statues murder you with their weird nose thing.